Jason Carter was down to his last few dollars. As a struggling college student, every cent mattered. He had a part-time job at a cafe, but between rent, tuition, and helping his mom back home, money was always tight. His father had died when he was just 5 years old, leaving his mother to raise him alone. She worked long hours as a nurse, often coming home exhausted, but she always made time for Jason. He remembered sitting with her at the kitchen table late at night as she helped him with his schoolwork, even when she could barely keep her eyes open. Despite their struggles, his mother always encouraged him to dream big. "You're going to do great things, Jason," she would say. "You just have to believe in yourself." Those words stuck with him, pushing him forward even when times were tough. He had learned to be independent early, taking on small jobs in high school to help ease the burden. He hated seeing his mom worry about money, and he promised himself that one day he would make life easier for her. But right now, even affording a decent meal felt like a luxury. On a rainy afternoon, on his way to the cafe where he worked, he noticed he had some time to spare. Instead of heading straight in, he decided to take a leisurely stroll around the neighborhood. Jason found himself wandering into a tiny thrift store tucked between two tall buildings. The store smelled of old books and worn-out leather, filled with forgotten treasures from another time. He wasn't planning to buy anything, just killing time before heading to work. But then, something caught his eye. In a glass case near the counter, among rusty keys and faded postcards, was an old coin. It was gold-colored, slightly worn, and had strange symbols engraved on it. Jason had never been into coins, but something about it was intriguing. "Excuse me, how much for this?" he asked the shopkeeper, an elderly man with a kind face and deep-set eyes that held an air of mystery. "Ah, that one!" The old man smiled knowingly. "Just $1. Jason hesitated. "What kind of coin is it?" The old man chuckled. "Ah, now that is a special coin. Some say it brings luck to those who carry it. A magic coin if you believe in such things." Jason raised an eyebrow. "Magic," he scoffed. "If it were magic, why sell it for just $1? The shopkeeper's smile widened. "Because luck isn't about the price, my boy. It's about the one who holds it." Jason rolled his eyes but still reached for his wallet. $1 wasn't much, and even if the coin wasn't magic, at least it was something interesting to carry around. He handed over the money, pocketed the coin, and left, shaking his head at the old man's words. As he stepped back into the rainy streets, he had no idea how much his life was about to change. Jason hurried down the wet streets, tucking the coin into his pocket. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, but the cold air still bit at his skin. He had to get to his shift at the cafe soon, but his mind kept drifting back to what the old man had said. "A magic coin," Jason muttered under his breath, shaking his head. "Yeah, right." Still, he couldn't help but feel a tiny flicker of curiosity. What if, just for fun, he tested it out? He stopped at a crosswalk and pulled the coin from his pocket, rubbing its surface between his fingers. It felt warm, almost like it had been sitting in the sun. Strange, considering the cold weather. Shrugging it off, he stepped onto the road just as a car came speeding toward him. His heart leaped into his throat. He tried to jump back, but it was too late. The tires screeched, and Jason braced himself for impact, but it never came. When he opened his eyes, the car was frozen just inches away, as if time itself had paused. Then, just as suddenly, the driver swerved at the last second and sped past him. Jason stood there, stunned, his breath coming in quick gasps. That was impossible. People on the sidewalk looked at him with concern, one woman even asking if he was okay. He nodded weakly, but his legs felt shaky as he continued walking. Had he just imagined it, Or had the coin really done something? A few minutes later, he arrived at the cafe, still shaken. As soon as he stepped inside, his manager, Lisa, rushed over. "Jason, I was just about to call you. We had a sudden opening for a full-time shift supervisor position. I know you've been asking for more hours. Do you want it?" Jason blinked. "Wait, really?" Lisa nodded. "You've worked hard and I think you'd be great at it." His mind raced. A promotion? Just like that? He had been working at the cafe for over a year, hoping for a better position, but never imagined it would happen this easily. He glanced at the coin in his pocket. It had to be a coincidence, right? Later that evening, Jason walked home, still processing everything. As he passed by a lottery stand, he hesitated. On impulse, he bought a scratch-off ticket, something he had never done before. He scratched the surface with the edge of the coin and felt his heart pound as the numbers revealed a $500 prize. Jason stared at the ticket in disbelief. His luck had never been this good before. He glanced around, half expecting someone to tell him he was on a hidden camera show. But no, it was real. The cashier congratulated him with a smile as Jason walked away in a daze. The next day, Jason sat in his economics class, nervously tapping his pen against his notebook. He had an assignment due that he hadn't completed on time. His professor, Dr. Reynolds, was known for being strict about deadlines. After class, Jason hesitated before approaching his desk. Professor Reynolds? I know the assignment was due yesterday, but..." Before he could finish, Dr. Reynolds gave him an unusual smile. "Oh, Jason, I was actually about to email you guys. I decided to extend the deadline for everyone by another 2 days, so you still have time to submit it." Jason blinked. "Wait, really?" he said. Dr. Reynolds nodded. "Yes, consider it a lucky break." Jason's mouth went dry. Another stroke of luck? This was getting weird. Later that afternoon, Jason was in the library when he saw May, a girl from his economics class. He had had a crush on her for months, but had never mustered the courage to talk to her. Just as he was thinking about leaving, May suddenly turned to him and smiled. "Hey Jason, right?" she said. His heart skipped a beat. Yeah. I saw you in class today. Do you want to study together for the next quiz?" she asked casually. Jason was sure his brain had stopped working. Was she really talking to him? This was the kind of thing he had only imagined happening. He quickly nodded. "Yeah, that would be great." Over the next few days, more strange things happened. Even little things, like finding a seat on a crowded bus, getting a free coffee because of a mix-up, or finding a $20 bill on the ground, seemed to go his way. Jason couldn't deny it anymore. Ever since he got the coin, his life had taken a turn for the better. The old man's words echoed in his mind. "Luck isn't about the price, my boy, it's about the one who holds it." Was it really magic? Or was something else at play? Jason didn't know yet, but one thing was certain: his life was changing, and he wasn't sure if he wanted it to stop. Jason woke up the next morning feeling lighter than he had in years. The events of the past few days played over and over in his mind. Near accidents avoided, a promotion, unexpected kindness, and even a sudden conversation with May. It all seemed too good to be true. But it was happening. With the coin safely tucked in his pocket, Jason left for the cafe, but this time, something was different. For the first time in a long while, he wasn't just hoping for a good day, he was expecting one. At the cafe, Jason overheard Lisa, his manager, talking to the owner about a customer service meeting that afternoon. Normally, he would keep his head down and avoid such things, but something inside him nudged him forward. "I could help with that," Jason said before he could stop himself. Lisa raised an eyebrow and said to him, "Really? You want to lead the discussion?" Jason hesitated for a second, but then his fingers brushed against the coin in his pocket. "Yeah, I think I have some good ideas, he said. Lisa smiled and said to him, All right, go for it. Hours later, as he stood in front of his coworkers, Jason felt a familiar nervousness creep in. But then he took a deep breath and reminded himself he had the coin. And somehow that was enough. He spoke clearly, confidently, and to his surprise, people actually listened. By the time he finished, Lisa clapped him on the back. That was great, Jason. You've got leadership potential, Lisa said to him. Jason grinned. Leadership potential? No one had ever said that about him before. That evening, Jason met up with some classmates for a small get-together. A friendly poker game started, and though he rarely gambled, tonight felt different. Come on, Jason, one of his friends teased. You in? He hesitated for a second before reaching into his pocket and gripping the coin. He had been lucky so far, hadn't he? I'm in, he said, placing his money on the table. To his shock, hand after hand, he won. His friends groaned as he collected his winnings, but Jason could only smile. It wasn't about the money. It was the thrill of knowing he had taken a risk and come out on top. It all felt like a dream. Walking home that night, Jason saw a flyer pinned to a bulletin board outside a bookstore. Open mic night, share your story. His heart pounded. Public speaking was his worst nightmare. But then again, had he not just led a meeting at work? Had he not just taken a risk at poker and won? Before he could overthink it, Jason pulled out his phone and signed up for a slot. Later that week, when he finally stood on stage, gripping the microphone, he felt his nerves return. His palms were sweaty. His mind screamed at him to walk away. But then his fingers brushed against the coin. He took a deep breath and started talking. To his amazement, people laughed at the right moments, nodded in understanding, and clapped when he finished. He had done it. He had actually done it. There was a moment of doubt. Jason sat outside the bookstore staring at the coin. How was all of this happening? Was it truly magic, or had it always been in him to do these things? A question lingered in his mind. Was it really the coin, or was it just him? Jason had started to believe that as long as he had the coin, everything would work out in his favor. He walked with his head high, took chances he never would have before, and felt invincible. But life had a way of reminding people that luck could only take them so far. It started with his economics midterm. Jason had been so caught up in his newfound confidence that he barely studied. After all, hadn't luck been on his side? Didn't things always seem to go his way? So, on the morning of the test, he strolled into class, the coin warm in his pocket, and sat down with a smirk. The moment he looked at the first question, his stomach dropped. None of it looked familiar. He flipped through the pages, but each question was worse than the last. His hands grew sweaty as he scribbled down random answers, hoping for a miracle. When he got his test results back a week later, his heart sank. He had failed. Not just barely, but completely. Jason stared at the red F at the top of the page. The coin was still in his pocket, but for the first time, it felt useless. A few days later, Jason decided to try out for the college basketball team. He had always loved the game, but never had the courage to go for it. Now, with his lucky coin, he felt unstoppable. At the tryouts, he started strong, making his first few shots with ease. But as the drills became harder, Jason's luck seemed to fade. He struggled to keep up with the others, missed passes, and fumbled the ball. By the end, the coach simply patted his shoulder and said, "Keep practicing, kid." Rejected. Jason walked off the court, gripping the coin tightly. Why hadn't it worked? Hadn't it helped him before? Feeling defeated, Jason decided to meet May at the library. She had agreed to study with him, and even though he wasn't feeling confident anymore, he still wanted to see her. As they sat across from each other, Jason forced a smile. "So ready to ace this quiz?" May sighed. I hope so. I've been studying all week. Jason frowned. All week? Yeah, this class is tough. You've been studying too, right? Jason hesitated. He wanted to say yes, but the truth sat heavy on his shoulders. He had been relying too much on luck. He thought about his test, the basketball tryouts, and now this moment. He finally shook his head. Not really. I kind of hoped things would just work out. May gave him a puzzled look. Jason, luck is great, but it's not everything. You have to put in the work too. Her words hit him harder than he expected. Maybe the coin had given him confidence, but confidence alone wasn't enough. For the first time, Jason wondered, had the coin ever been magic at all, or had it just made him believe in himself? Later that evening, sat alone in his room, turning the coin over in his fingers. It had felt magical when good things kept happening. But now, after failing his exam, getting rejected from the basketball team, and realizing he had been relying on luck instead of effort, it just felt like an ordinary piece of metal. For a moment, he thought about throwing it away. But something stopped him. It wasn't the coin that had changed his life, it was him. The coin had only given him confidence, but confidence without effort was useless. He had been lucky, yes, but he had also taken chances he never would have before. Now, he had to prove to himself that he could succeed without it. The next morning, Jason woke up with a different mindset. He made a plan. For his studies, he would actually put in the effort this time. He met with May for study sessions, took detailed notes, and practiced solving problems instead of hoping for luck. The first few days were frustrating and discouraging. He realized how much he had ignored, but May encouraged him, reminding him that improvement took time. Slowly, the formulas and concepts started making sense. For basketball, instead of giving up, he started training. He watched videos, worked on his stamina, and practiced every evening at the local park. At first, he was exhausted after just a few minutes of running. But as the weeks went by, his endurance improved. He even made a few new friends at the court who gave him tips on how to improve his shooting technique. For himself, he decided to take more control of his choices. He wouldn't wait for things to happen, he would make them happen. Instead of brushing off responsibilities, he set goals and worked towards them. He even started waking up earlier to plan his day, something he never thought he would do. Weeks passed, and slowly Jason saw a difference. His grades improved, and when he retook his economics test, he passed with a solid B+. It wasn't perfect, but it was proof that effort mattered more than luck. The satisfaction he felt was different from when he had depended on luck. It was real, earned. On the basketball court, he got faster, stronger, and more skilled. One afternoon, coach spotted him practicing. "You've improved a lot," he said. "Tryouts are coming up again. You should give it another shot." This time, Jason wasn't relying on luck, he was relying on himself. When tryouts came, he played with confidence, not from a coin in his pocket, but from the countless hours of practice he had put in. When coach finally called his name and told him he made the team, Jason felt something far greater than luck. He felt pride. One day, Jason was rushing to class when he bumped into a man on the sidewalk. "Thank you, son," the man said with a warm smile. "Here, take this as a small reward." Jason looked down to see another coin, similar to his own. For a brief moment he laughed. He had come full circle. But this time, he didn't take it. "No, thank you," Jason said. "I think I'll make my own luck." As he walked away, he reached into his pocket, pulled out his old lucky coin, and smiled. Maybe it had been magic after all, not because of what it was, but because of what it made him believe about himself. He tucked the coin away, not because he needed it anymore, but because it reminded him of the day he finally learned what real magic was. Vocabulary building. Let's learn some words from these story. Invincible, meaning too powerful to be defeated or to overcome. Example, he walked with his head high, took chances he never would have before, and felt invincible. Hesitate, meaning to pause before saying or doing something, usually because of uncertainty. Example, Jason hesitated. He wanted to say yes. Endurance, meaning the ability to keep doing something difficult for a long time. Example, he was exhausted after a few minutes of running. Over time, his endurance improved. Confidence, meaning a feeling of trust in one's abilities or self-worth. Example, maybe the coin had given him confidence, but confidence alone wasn't enough. Rejected, meaning refused or not accepted. Example, by the end the coach simply patted his shoulder and said, "Keep practicing, kid." Rejected. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Take care, and see you in the next story.